Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. It is the live game review, Crystal Palace 2, Everton 3 on Saturday afternoon. Apologies that this one is a little bit late. Obviously we usually do our reviews on a Monday evening. However, I was a little bit busy last night after work, so I thought, you know what, we'll do this one on the Tuesday instead. I am still absolutely buzzing after that result on Saturday afternoon. One that gave me a feeling that I've not felt in a long time. Yes, I was buzzing 2 weeks ago when Everton beat West Ham. Yes, I was buzzing when Everton beat Burnley. Yes, I was buzzing when Everton beat Brentford and Bournemouth. But to win a game in the way in which we did on Saturday against Crystal Palace, you know, to obviously be a goal up and then concede and then go a goal up again and then concede again and then seemingly being overran and seemingly looking like the team that were more likely to concede, to then go and score, you know, the fifth goal in the game and ultimately get the winner, and then, you know, be able to defend for the last 10 minutes or so and see the game out and come away with a massive win away from home at a stadium that we've not done particularly well at in recent years is fantastic for me. And as I said on Saturday afternoon, I've seen those types of games tens, if not hundreds of times in the years that I've supported this football club, and very rarely do they fall in favour of Everton Football Club. Very rarely do Everton manage to come away with the 3 points in a game that maybe hasn't quite gone the way that you wanted it to. Were we a little bit lucky to win this one? I don't think luck is the right word, because I don't particularly think Crystal Palace deserved to win the game. Yes, you know, you could say they were the better team in spells in that second half and certainly looked the more likely to score once they'd equalised, but I thought Everton done really well going forward with the chances that we had. Defensively, we at times were a little bit shaky. We at times looked like we struggled a little bit, especially in that first half, to deal with, you know, Eze's pace and quality, but for the most part we done okay. And you know, I think it was a fairly fair game, and maybe a point would have been a more fair result, but ultimately in football, you don't always get what you deserve, and you don't always get a fair result. And as I said, far too many times over the 25 years I've supported Everton, we've walked away from games like that, having lost when we don't necessarily deserve to lose, and not many times have we walked away from those games with 3 points. So to come away from Saturday with another huge away win, bringing our tally to 3 away wins so far this season, which is already more than we had in the entirety of last season. We are 1 away win from matching our away record for both last season and the season before, which is absolutely huge. Not to mention the 3 of them have come in London, which is very rare for Everton as well. And they've all come against good sides as well. Brentford are a very good side at home. There's not many teams that'll turn up at Brentford's ground this season and be able to, you know, beat them in the way in which we did. West Ham are a good, solid team, European champions, and we managed to turn up there and beat them. And even though the Crystal Palace game was a little bit different, as I mentioned, you know, the West Ham game was very sort of vintage, typical Sean Dyche, wasn't it? Turn up, defend, stop the opposition from doing what they want to do, stop their key players from being in the game, you know, hit them on the counter-attack, get a goal, and be concentrated, you know, keep your concentration and keep your head defensively and see the game out. That was what we did against West Ham, and we got a really well-deserved win. It was the same against Brentford. That wasn't quite the case on Saturday against Palace. The game was a little bit more up in arms. It was a little bit more cagey. It was a little bit more all over the place, but we still managed to come away with the 3 points, and that's the difference. And that's the difference between where we are now and where we were 12 months ago. And I think it's fair to say, I speak on behalf of the majority of Evertonians, I am much more comfortable with where Everton are at the moment than where we were, you know, 12 months ago and 24 months ago, because even though position-wise, in terms of the Premier League table, we're in a similar position to where we were, you know, last year, we are much better off in various different, various different components of a footballing season. You know, winning away from home, being able to win away from home, being confident enough to go into these games with a plan and with a, you know, a system that we know will work and we know will win us games. The fans now are feeling more confident. You know, I sat here on Friday and said, I think we can get something out of this one. 12 months ago when we played Palace away, I think I was pretty expectant of a defeat. You know, before West Ham, we sat here and we said, you know what, I think we'll win this, and we did. We turned around and won it. As I said, the performances are much, much better. The players seem to have a much bigger belief in themselves. They seem to have a much more confidence in their own ability as well as in the manager's plans. We're seeing individual players who are, sparking up and ultimately becoming really, really important for us. Players like Vitaly Mykolenko, who again was absolutely pivotal on Saturday, getting a goal, having a massive part to play in the second goal as well. This is a player that, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago was terrified to go past the halfway line and very, very, very rarely even put a cross into the box. Now he's getting in the positions that when the ball falls in the 6-yard box, he's on the end of it. So the Everton that we are seeing now compared to the Everton that we saw 12 months ago is complete and utter night and day. And I think it's really, really interesting because Ped from Toffee TV put a really, really interesting tweet up on Saturday night after the game regarding the position that we're in now and the position that we were in 12 months ago. And I want to get it up because I think it's really, really important to talk about. So, we were, after 15 games played last season, we were 17th in the league with 14 points. Bear with me 2 seconds. After 12 games played this season, we are 14th in the Premier League with the same amount of points, 14 points. So whilst we have the same amount of points as we did this time last season, we are 3 positions higher than we were, and we are 3 games better off. We're 3 games better off. We're 3 positions higher in the table, and I think our goal difference is significantly better as well. But another really, really important thing I want to discuss is the league table 12 months ago in comparison to what it is now. So not only were we 17th with 14 points 12 months ago, but as I said, we'd played 15 games, whereas we've only played 12 now. And if you look at the table, Wolves were sat in 20th position with 10 points. Then it was Southampton with 12 points. Then it was Forest with 13. Then it was Everton on 14, West Ham on 14, Leeds 15, Bournemouth 16, Leicester 17, Villa 18, Palace 19. So there were literally 9 points that separated 10th position and 20th position in the Premier League this time last year. And Everton, of course, were amongst that. And, were amongst it for the majority of the season. And as we know, we were in a position in January, February time where 4 points separated 8 or 9 teams at the bottom of the table. There was a side sat in 11th position who were only 4 points away from being in the relegation zone. Whereas this season, it's much, much different to that. Now you've got Sheffield United, 11 games played, 4 points. Burnley, 12 games played, 4 points. Luton, 12 games played, 6 points. Bournemouth, 9 points. Fulham, 12 points. Forest, 13. Then there's Everton, 14. West Ham, 14. Palace, 15. Wolves, 15. And Chelsea, 15. I believe Chelsea's changed. Now Chelsea have got 16 because this was before Sunday's game. So instead of, as I said, 10 points separating 20th and 10th, 9 points, you've now got, 11 points separating 10th and 20th. But more importantly and critically, the difference between where Everton are now and the relegation zone is 8 points. We are 8 points off of that drop, and again, I don't want to, I don't want to jinx anything. I don't want to, say something and then obviously put the old sort of jinx on it. And obviously, we all know that there's a current situation going on at the moment with, the financial fair play case, and there's rumours and reports that Everton could be deducted 12 points, and if that 12 points deduction is given out, then it might be this season, it might be next season, it might be suspended. We don't know. We still could be hit with a 12-point deduction. However, if we are not hit with a 12-point deduction, and this is mad for me to say, and touch wood that, this doesn't jinx anything at all, but let's say we aren't hit with any form of points deduction at the moment, I'm fairly confident on the 14th of November that Everton will have no issue being safe this season in the Premier League. And I know you might have just heard that and thought, oh my God, Cam, what have you just said? Why have you just said that? But I'm extremely confident that Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton will not pick up 8 points well, 9 points in Sheffield United's case and 10 points in Luton's case. I'm fairly confident that those three teams will not pick up 8 points in weeks where Everton don't pick up a point. I'm fairly confident that that gap will not be closed by those teams. It might be closed slightly. They might take it down to 6 points or 4 points, and it might get to a point where it's a little bit tighter. But I'm fairly confident that Everton now are as far away from the relegation zone to be able to start looking upwards. And the reason for that is because there's no reason now why we shouldn't be going into the next few games not worrying about whether or not Burnley win, or whether or not Luton win, or Sheffield United win. We should be worrying about whether Palace win, or Wolves win, or Brentford win, because we're on 14 points. We've just beaten Crystal Palace. A week before that, we drew with Brighton and we were unlucky to not win that game. Had we have won that game, we'd be on 16 points at the moment and we'd be sitting just below Brentford in 12th. It's very, very possible. We've got Manchester United next at home, which, again, you know, is a very winnable game considering how bad they've been. And then we've got Forest away. Let's say, hypothetically, Everton gets 6 points in those two games. And I'm not expecting us to get 6 points in those two games, but let's say, hypothetically, we did. That'd put us on 20 points, which would be the same as Newcastle currently. Obviously, you know, Brighton and West Ham and Chelsea may win games in those periods of times as well, but that puts us close to the top 7 or 8. Now, then you're in the bracket of teams that people are talking about, you know, who's going to finish in Europe, who's going to challenge for the Champions League, who's going to finish in the Europa League places, and all of a sudden, you've gone from relegation contenders to potential challenges for European places within the space of a couple of months. Now, I'm not saying I think Everton will challenge for Europe, by the way, and I'm not saying that I think Everton will be good enough to do that, and I'm not saying that I think Everton will pick up 6 points and every other team in those positions will not pick up a single point. Of course I'm not, but what I'm saying is I think it's about time at this football club that the narrative starts to shift a little bit, and instead of looking behind us and below us at what teams are doing, we should look above us at what teams are doing. Because, as I said, we are currently only 6 points away from Newcastle, who are sat in 20th place. Had we have beaten Fulham at the beginning of the season, which a game we should have, and Luton at home, which is a game we absolutely should have won, we'd be sat on the same amount of points as what Newcastle are on at the moment, 1 behind Manchester United. Only 5 behind Aston Villa, who are sat in 5th at the moment. So that's how different things could have been. And, you know, that was why I was so adamant on not being happy with the, oh, but our performances are good even though we're not winning, because it's all about winning games of football. And as I said, imagine where we would have been had we have won 2 of those games that we lost at the beginning of the season that we should never have lost. But that just shows you how well we've done in the last couple of months or so to put ourselves in this position. Do not underestimate the impact of wins at West Ham, Brentford. You know, even the win against Bournemouth at Goodison, so demanding, so controlling, so comfortable, at a period of time where we weren't playing well at Goodison. We were struggling, we were losing games we shouldn't have been losing to Luton, losing to Fulham, losing to Wolves. And yet we still turned up and beat not a great Bournemouth side, but we wiped the floor with them on that day. And I dare say there will be teams that will come to Goodison this season who we should be able to do the similar to what we did to Bournemouth. And if we can keep up going away from home and winning games especially in the fashion we did on Saturday. Saturday, for me, was our most impressive win of the season. It was our most impressive win of the season against Crystal Palace because, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved it. When we bladdered Bournemouth at Goodison Park a couple of weeks ago, it was great. I sat there, no stress, no anxiety, no worry. We just absolutely battered them. It was comfortable. I absolutely loved it when we beat Brentford out of nowhere. It was great. I loved it when we beat West Ham. But those were games where the opposition team could not deal with Everton. And that's great. That is absolutely brilliantly. That's absolutely brilliant. I'd love every other game between now and the end of the season to be games in which the opposition team cannot deal with Everton, because that means that we'll win the majority of them. So that's brilliant. When you win a game, when you manage to nullify the opposition and they just don't know what to do, great. But Saturday against Palace was an example of a game that could have gone either way. It was an example of a game that it wasn't a case of the opposition team can't do anything because Everton are defending so well, or Everton are holding them off so well, or Everton have stopped them from playing their game plan. It wasn't like that. Now, you might be saying, Cam, how can you prefer a win where, it's a bit cagey and it could go either way over one where you're comfortable and, the opposition team aren't playing well? The reason for it is because you aren't going to play well in every single game. Sean Dyche isn't going to be able to perform that style away from home of frustrating the opposition, stopping them from playing their game and hitting them on the break every week. It's not going to work. He's not going to be able to do it at home every week. So it's important that in those games that are a little bit cagey and are a little bit up in the air and are a little bit, which way is this going to go? It's important that they go the way of Everton. We've already seen one this season, specifically, at Sheffield United, where we come away with a point. And I think a lot of us after that game sort of sat down and said, we really should have won that. It was our first point of the season, so I think the majority of us were just happy to get a point. But realistically, if that game was played next week and it was the same outcome, the same performance, the same results, we'd all be incredibly, incredibly frustrated that we'd not won it. So to see us on Saturday go a goal up to make it 2-1 and then make a couple of changes. The pressure, was mounted on us. They're probably the team on top. They're probably the team in control. They get an equaliser, and then you're thinking, right, I've seen this story 100 times before, 150 times before. They're going to go and get a winner, and we're going to be sitting here saying, how have we not won this game? Or how have we not got something out of this game? Instead of that being the case and the usual narrative, we didn't. We went on and got the winner, and we come away from the game with a big, huge 3 points, even though it wasn't a sort of stereotypical Sean Dyche-esque performance, if you like. And that is credit to the manager, and that is credit to these players and the confidence that these players have in themselves at the moment to be able to turn up and do that. It's about winning those games that you maybe don't expect to win, or maybe as the game is being played, you're thinking, I'm not sure we're going to win this. It's about winning those games. That's why over the years, teams have been able to win Premier League titles. It's a bit different now with Manchester City because they often just turn up and steamroll everybody. But over the years when teams have won titles, it's because they've had games where they've not played particularly well. They've not looked brilliant in them, but they've still managed to come away with the win. Look at them lot across the park, and I don't like comparing us to them lot across the park because I know people don't like me talking about them, but they are in a title race this season. Unfortunately for us, they are in the title race this season. They will challenge they will challenge Manchester City and Arsenal, in my opinion, for the Premier League title. Now, a week ago, they were absolutely horrendous at Luton. Absolutely horrendous. They deserved to lose that game 100 times over. They went 1-0 down. They were terrible. Their forwards were shocking on the day. But they still dug deep and managed to get something out of the game. And even though it wasn't a win, and even though it wasn't a result or a performance to particularly celebrate, they got a point, which might be the difference between them winning the league or not winning the league this season. The league has been separated by a point before in recent years. So it's about those afternoons when you're not particularly playing well or you're not particularly in control of the game and you still manage to come away with the result. And that was what it was for Everton on Saturday, and that was why I was so pleased, and that was why I was so happy, and that was why I was so made up, because I get the most joy out of those games where with 20 minutes to go you're thinking, bloody hell, I don't think this is going to go well, and yet then you go and get a winner and you win the game and you're sort of sitting there going, fucking hell, that was boss, that was absolutely boss. And yeah, again, it was fantastic. And the Blues says, Cam, what side do you sit on regarding who was the better team on Saturday? I say us because we created 3 big chances and gifted them 2. Others say Palace were better. I don't necessarily think, when I say games like this where you maybe don't deserve to win, you still win, I don't think Palace were the particularly better team. I don't think it was a robbery. I've seen some Palace fans on Twitter saying, we were robbed again, blah, blah, blah. Firstly, you got a penalty that was never a penalty. Secondly, you had a player stay on the pitch despite being on a yellow card, making 4 fouls and throwing himself on the floor constantly. And as you've quite rightly said, secondly, they were gifted 2 goals. 2 goals that were shocking defensive. The penalty, whether or not it's a penalty, it's a defensive error, and the second goal is the worst goal Everton have conceded for a long, long time. I don't think Palace were particularly the better team. Um, However, I think it was very, very cagey. It was very, very cagey. And had Palace have won that game, I don't think any of us would have been sat here saying, how have they done that? That's completely unexpected. That was against the run of play. I don't think we would have been saying that. So I don't think they were particularly the better team, and I certainly don't think they deserved to win any more than we did. I just think it was a cagey affair, and often those types of games don't go in Everton's favour. So that's why it's really, really important that it did go in our favour. And yeah, as I said, there'll be other games this season that are similar to that. There will be more games this season where it's the last 15 minutes, it's even, and it's a bit up and down, and Everton have got to go and try and dig deep and find a winner. And that was why I was so impressed with Saturday, because it wasn't a comfortable 2-0 win. It wasn't a 1-0 win, but Palace never really looked in it. When we played West Ham a couple of weeks ago, even though we only won the game 1-0, with 15 minutes to go, I was sat there with my feet up, thinking, "This is comfortable. This is absolutely comfortable." I could have put my phone down. I could have went and made a cup of tea. I could have went and ran a bath. I was so confident that West Ham were not going to score. Same with Brentford a couple of weeks ago, when we beat them. The last 15 minutes, I was pretty cool and calm that we'd won that game. Bournemouth, as we've said, comfortable at Goodison. Burnley, comfortable at Goodison. Even the Brighton game. I know they obviously scored with 5 minutes to go and it was a deflection, but I was never sat there in my seat thinking, "Oh my God, these are going to score here. We're inviting them on." I wasn't once. Saturday, I was watching thinking, "Yeah, I can see these scoring." I could see them equalising all day. And then when they equalised, I thought, and correct me if I'm wrong here, little question to everybody watching. If you are enjoying, by the way, please hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. It only takes a second. Little question to people that are watching, everybody involved in the comments. When Palace scored that equaliser and they brought Elise on, be honest. Don't lie. There's no point in lying. Be honest. If I was to magically appear in your living room or in your mind or in the pub or wherever you were in the stadium watching the game and say to you, at that moment, they've just scored the equaliser, Elise's come on, who do you think is more likely to go and get a winner in this game? Be honest, who would you have said? Now, don't say Everton because we did, or Everton because you think you're now in hindsight think, yeah, Everton would have gone on and won it. Be honest, generally, at that moment, if I'd have said, there's a winner in this game, who do you think it's for? Who would you have said? Because I'd have said Palace, because they look to have more of the ball. They'd brought Elise on. He's obviously quick, good quality player. Eze had caused us enough problems. They'd just equalised. When my phone flashed up that there'd been another goal, before I could see who it was for, I put my head in my hands. Because the means in which I was viewing the game were slightly behind certain technology I had on my phone at the time. So when my phone flashed up goal, before I was able to see who had scored the goal and who it was for, I had my head in my hands and I said, for fuck's sake. Because I was that sure that they'd gone on and got the goal, because that's typically how it works. Everton do well, concede a silly goal, the opposition team get momentum, go on and get another one and end up winning the game. I mean, Hernandez says Palace had all the possession. Emma says Palace. Danny says Palace. The Blues says, I thought we'd lose at 2-2 because it's Everton, so Palace. Hernandez says Palace. Eugene says Palace. I thought it was a draw nailed on in the last 10 minutes, says Wonderlust. Fair enough. Point is, not many people thought Everton would go on and get the winner, because typically in those situations, Everton don't do that. So it was so good to see us go and do that. And it was a sign of how much better we are now compared to where we were 12 months ago. This team 12 months ago, having conceded that second goal, which was, by the way, one of the worst goals we've ever conceded, would have shit themselves. Their heads would have dropped. They would have panicked and they would have almost certainly gone on and conceded. This team didn't. They picked themselves up. They dragged themselves forward. They weathered the storm. We still had some big moments defensively at 2-2. James Garner made 2 fantastic blocks in the box. Tarkowski made a couple of big moments as well. Brantwaite made a couple of good interceptions. We picked ourselves up. We got our head up and we drove forward. And we went and got the winner. And ultimately we've come away with 3 points. Now, if you just look at the Premier League table, had we have not won that game, we'd be on 11 points now after 12 games, which would see us sitting in 16th position in the league, which would be 2 points above Bournemouth in 17th. And all of a sudden, the conversation would have been, well, there's still 5 teams in that relegation battle, because you've got Burnley, Sheffield United and Luton, but Luton are only 5 points from Everton. Bournemouth are only 2 points from Everton. Bournemouth win 1 week and Everton draw. Bournemouth are on the same points as Everton. But that win takes us to a position, as I said, where we're now able to look above us and think, well, forget what those teams are doing behind us. How are Brentford getting on? How are Chelsea getting on? How are, I think Wolves are in and around there as well. How are Wolves getting on? How are Palace getting on? Teams that, again, if you were to say to the majority of people, do you think Crystal Palace are in a relegation battle this season? They'd say, no, well, we're a point behind Crystal Palace. So, again, it just shows the importance of that win. And for me, as I said, it was our biggest win of the season and our most impressive win of the season because of the way in which we won the game. And we'll have many, many more afternoons where it is a bit cagey. It could go either way. It's a little bit anxious, but you've just got to dig deep and win the game. Obviously, we started the game perfectly. Within a minute, we're 1-0 up. Again, another early goal. Some people don't like an early goal, but I just like seeing Everton scoring goals, to be honest, and winning games of football. We had so many games last season where we were unable to score because, Dom was injured or players weren't able to step up and contribute properly, and we didn't have no one putting the ball in the back of the net that we can score in the first second of the game now or the last second, and I'll be made up just to see Everton score. We go 1-0 up instantly. As I said, it's a really, really good start to the game. We get forward. Ball comes in to the box. Dom flicks it down nicely. Mykolenko again on the edge of the box. Now, I haven't seen enough people talking about Vitaly Mykolenko recently. And I don't think he's getting the respect that he deserves, because not only is he having an impact, and it's very easy to say, oh yeah, Miko's being boss, he scored 2 goals in 2 games, and he's getting forward now and he's contributing. But look at why he's getting forward and why he is contributing. This lad's confidence level has gone from one planet to a completely other Milky Way in the space of 5 or 6 weeks. Not only defensively has he been absolutely fantastic and pretty much faultless, and his one-on-one defending has been absolutely brilliant against some of the best and most creative wingers in the country. You've got Jarrett Bowen, who's one of the best wingers in the country at the moment, just being called up for the England team, dealt with him comfortably. Mohamed Salah, one of the best in the world, dealt with him comfortably. He had Eze to deal with at times on Saturday, dealt with him particularly comfortably, even though I think Eze ran the game. I think Mykolenko, when he had to do, when he had that exchange, he worked well with it. And I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and a couple of people said, oh yeah, but his defensive work has always been fine. He's always been great defensively. He's always been sound. But what has happened to Miko over the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, is the better and better he is getting defensively, and the more comfortable he is becoming defensively, and the better his performances are becoming at the back, it is giving him that confidence to be able to move forward into forward positions. I remember 6 months ago, Vitaly Mykolenko wouldn't move past the halfway line. He wouldn't put a cross into the box. He wouldn't be in a position to, to get on the end of an overhit cross and put the ball back in. He was terrified of leaving his position and going forward for, I think, personally, 2 reasons. One of them is because I don't think he was confident in himself and his own ability, so I think he shied away from getting forward. And the second one is, I think it's because he didn't trust the centre-back that was next to him. And 2 things have changed. The centre-back has changed. He's now got Jarrett Brandwaite next to him at left centre-back, who he very clearly believes in and is confident in and believes is good enough to be able to cover the space that he leaves when he goes forward. And secondly, his confidence is growing hugely. You're now in a position where, as I said, 6 months ago, we had a left-back who was terrified of getting forward and putting himself in those forward areas. Now, 1 minute into the game, he's on the edge of the opposition box. He has a shot, it gets blocked. This is the other big moment. As I said, 6 months ago, even if he was to find himself on the edge of the opposition box having that shot, when he has that shot and it is blocked and it deflects out, I don't care what anybody says. This player, Vitaly Mykolenko, 6 months ago would have gone, right, I've had my shot now, I've missed it, I'm just going to move back to my position now. I'm just going to move away and I'm going to revert back to being a left back. But he didn't. He absolutely didn't. He went further into the box. He takes a shot, it gets blocked, it falls to Jack Addison, and instead of going, right, okay, I'm just going to move back now, he goes, no, that ball's going to be put in that area, so I'm going to go and attack it. Great ball in by Jack, to be fair. Brilliant ball in. He goes and attacks it. He jumps and he nods it into the back of the net. 6 shots in his last 2 games, 2 goals, and very, very, very nearly had another goal on Saturday and deserved another goal for the volley that hit the post. Now, is it any coincidence that the more he is getting forward, the more chances he is getting to score, which then ultimately equates to the more goals he is scoring? 2 goals in 2 games for Vitaly Mykolenko. Both have come from positions where he has continued the run. Not from a corner where, the ball has been put in and he's just happened to have been in the box. Not from a set piece. Moments where he is driven into the box off his own back because he is confident that he'll be able to get on the end of it and create something. That is a different player to the one that we saw 12 months ago and even 6 months ago. So, yeah, it's a great goal. Brilliant header. Brilliant ball in by Jack as well. And it's a fantastic start for Everton. And then, literally, before you can even say, okay, let's settle down now and sort of control the possession of the ball and control the, the flow of the game, they go up the other end. Eze skips past a couple of people, gets into the box, and is tripped by Jarrod Branthwaite, and the referee is given a penalty. Now, a couple of issues I had with this. Firstly, is Eze is giving far too much time on the ball and far too much time to skip past us and run through us and, be able to create himself some space to get a shot off. And to be fair, I think he did that all afternoon, Eze. I think he caused us huge issues all afternoon. Getting in those areas and causing us massive problems, and I do think the defence struggled in the first half. I'll be honest, I think Jarrod Branthwaite has been absolutely unbelievable in the last few weeks or so. I think he's been fantastic. I think he's been fairly faultless, but I think he struggled on Saturday. I think he struggled, especially in that first half. I think he struggled to deal with Eze. I think he struggled to, just to when to jump in, when to not jump in. He got better as the game went on, and as the second half, went on, he got more comfortable, and he seemingly was better at doing that. But in the first half, and certainly at the start of the game, I think he struggled. I think he struggled hugely to deal with Eze and to deal with his quality and his ability on the ball. The penalty is given. As I said, I've got big issues with this, and I've got big issues with this for a couple of reasons. Firstly, is because I watched Dwight McNeil thrown to the ground aggressively a week ago against Brighton, and the referees determined there wasn't enough contact in the challenge for it to be deemed a penalty. Then I watched Dominic Calvert-Lewin ragged to the floor about half an hour later in the same game. Once again, the referees determined not enough contact for there to be a penalty. And then a week later, Jarrod Branthwaite makes the slightest amount of contact with Eze, and I mean literally, he must have brushed the laces on his boot. Eze throws himself on the floor, goes down, and it's a penalty. Now, yes, I think Jarrod is silly to put himself in that position. I think Jarrod is silly to lunge in, and I think as a Premier League defender, you should understand that the moment you launch in that situation and put yourself in that position, the moment you are effectively gifting the referee the opportunity to give a penalty. Yes, I get that, 100%. Secondly, I have spoken enough times on this channel about the standard of refereeing, about VAR, and about the issues in this country with officials. I've spoken about it hundreds of times, and I'm bored of it, to be honest. I done a podcast on it last week. If you've not listened to that podcast, please go and check that out. The Park End Podcast. It's on the channel now, or it's on Spotify. If you search the Park End Podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you'll be able to see it. One of my biggest issues with refereeing in the Premier League is the objectivity. It baffles me how so many people are comfortable with refereeing decisions being objective. It doesn't make any sense to me how you've got a league that is populated with footballers with hundreds of millions of pounds, being paid hundreds of millions of pounds a year, being watched by hundreds of millions of people across the world, and you leave massive decisions in that game down to how a referee feels on the day. I don't think, and I get you'll say, well, how do you change it? You can't just make football black and white. There's got to be a bit of objectivity. Yes, there has, and I haven't necessarily got the answers, but I do not think we should be in a position where one week a referee can view a challenge as a penalty, and the next week a different referee can view the exact same challenge in a different game as not a penalty. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and I get football will always be subjective. I get it. Subjectivity, sorry, not objectivity, subjectivity. I get football will always be subjective, and I get that it's impossible to make it pure black and white, but with big decisions like this, penalties, red cards, I think it can't be subjective. It simply can't be, because then you open the door for people to say, well, hang on, Dwight McNeil was thrown to the ground last week, and the referee said no penalty, not enough contact. A week later, Eze literally brushes the boot of Branthwaite, goes down, and then everyone's saying, oh yeah, that's enough contact for the penalty. And I don't care what anybody says, by the way. I couldn't give a fuck what any of the PGMOL clowns say, or what any of them dickheads that run round the football pitch in an all-black uniform on a Saturday and Sunday afternoon say. If that was at Anfield against Liverpool, and it was, I don't know, let's say Abdoulaye Doucouré, and Van Dijk had stuck his foot out, that is never, ever being given as a penalty. Never being given as a penalty by any of the referees in the PGMOL. Any of them. None of them. That is Everton never getting that penalty in the majority of games. If it had been the other end of the pitch, Everton wouldn't have got that penalty. So, that's my problem. I think the referees in this country have got too big of an excuse. Oh, well, subjectively, I deemed that as a penalty, and another referee mightn't have deemed it as a penalty. Bollocks. It's either a penalty or it's not a penalty. And I do think that rule can be changed. I do, because I think they can introduce a rule where the amount of contact has to be deemed enough to send the player down. And if you would have watched the replay, Eze is actually already on his way down before there's contact made. But, fine. Yeah, even the Blues says no chance we get that penalty. We don't get that penalty. We don't. And it was proven last week when we should have had 2 penalties, and we weren't given them. as somebody pointed out in the comments before, can't remember who it was, sorry. We should have had 3 penalties against Sheffield United, and we weren't given any of them. When was the last time Everton got a penalty? When? Answer me that. I can't remember. Anyway, fine. It gets given. Branthwaite's silly. Shouldn't put his foot out. He struggled to deal with Eze all afternoon, as I mentioned. My second problem with that penalty is the exact same thing happens 5 minutes later. The exact same situation. Eze skips past Onana. He's one-on-one with Branthwaite. He skips past him. Branthwaite goes to ground. Eze goes to ground. And the referee blows up and gives a dive and gives him a yellow card and books him for simulation. Now, in my opinion, as I've said, I don't think either of them are penalties. I don't. But what I don't understand is how can the referee give one as a penalty and not give the other as a penalty? Surely, if one is a penalty, they both are. Or if one is a dive, they both are. And Eze dived 2 or 3 times in this game, by the way. He threw himself on the floor 2 or 3 times with no contact being made at all. He should have been sent off without a shadow of a doubt. Great player, but a diving, cheating player, in my opinion. And I will say that because I don't give a fuck, because it was levelled at Richarlison for years by people in the media. Won't be levelled at anyone else, but it was levelled at Richarlison. He's a cheat. It's as simple as that. But how are we in a position where the same referee, within the space of 10 minutes, gives the same decision, completely opposite outcomes. One's a penalty, one's a dive. Is it because he didn't feel like the first one was a penalty, but he gave it, and then he realised, oh shit, I shouldn't have given that, so I'm going to give the second one as a dive? I don't. And the Blue says there was more contact in the first one. He was actually tripped. I've watched it back so many times. I don't see a trip at all. I see the tiniest bit of contact with the edge of the boot. That's it. I don't see any more contact. Maybe I'm just not looking back at it. Maybe I'm seeing the wrong thing. But for me, I don't get that. Don't get me wrong. I made up the second one wasn't a penalty, obviously, but I just don't get it. And I think it invites players to throw themselves over. And do you know what? People can say all they like, oh no, we shouldn't condone cheating, you shouldn't condone diving, blah de blah de blah. You know, all these pundits coming out, we can't condone diving or cheating, etc, etc. Well, they do condone diving and cheating, because they all come out and said that's a blatant penalty on Eze, which in my opinion he threw himself over too soon. So they're condoning diving. So I hope now, next week against Manchester United, I hope Dominic Calvert-Lewin throws himself on the floor in the box. Will it be given? No, because we're playing Manchester United. But I hope he does, and then I hope Dice comes out afterwards and goes, funny that, innit? Because Eze was given a penalty for the same thing 2 weeks ago, so, what's going on here? But anyway, he steps up, he takes the penalty, he scores it, and you're thinking, okay, right, you know, not the end of the world, because ultimately, effectively, it's back to 0-0 at the start of the game, isn't it? And then, yeah, I wasn't hugely impressed with the rest of the first half performance. To be fair, I thought the game calmed down. I don't think we calmed it down. I think it just calmed down in time. But I do think defensively we were a little bit all over the place, I'll be honest. I think defensively we were a little bit all over the place. As I said, I think Jared struggled all first half to deal with their forward players, to deal with their attack, to deal with their quality. We didn't have an awful lot going forward. We didn't have an awful lot, you know, in attacking areas. We had a couple of sort of half chances that we'd mustered up, a couple of half moments that we'd mustered up to get shots away. But generally, Palace were the team with more of the ball. But again, weren't massively creating much, weren't putting much pressure on Jordan Pickford. It wasn't like either goalkeeper was particularly tested in that first half, you know, other than obviously the two goals. It was very argy-bargy. It was very sort of almost like on the verge of getting there, but they didn't quite get there. And then we sorted it out, and as I said at the end of the first half, I think I tweeted, very, very cagey, and a game that could go on either way. And my biggest criticism in that first half was Everton just didn't have control of the game. We didn't have control of the pace of the game. We didn't have control of the of the momentum. We just weren't in control, and that was the first time I'd watched an Everton performance away from home, certainly, for a couple of months where we hadn't been in control of the game. Against West Ham, we were in control of the game. Against Brentford, we were in control of the game. You know, even against Liverpool in the Merseyside derby, until the Canate situation, which again was another example of referee subjectivity, which was blatantly just cheating and blatant corruption, but it's under the line of subjectivity. Until that moment, we were fairly in control of that game. You know, Liverpool were not doing anything. We weren't really under any pressure. This was the first time in a long time where away from home we weren't in control of the pace of the game. We weren't in control of the momentum. It was very much up in the air. Not a case of we were getting overrun or we were getting battered or Palace were the much better team. It was just very, very cagey, and I don't think either team really were in control of what was going on. I think it was very back and forth, and that was because they were at home. They had a couple of their better players back fit and available, and therefore they could play the way they wanted to, as opposed to, you know, as I said, I don't think they've won a home game since September because of the injuries that they've had. It would be Everton, by the way, whose first game, you know, Elise's first game back in about 20 years is against Everton. Of course it would be. But we come out for the second half and you're thinking, right, okay, let's just get a foothold in this a little bit. Calm it down, you know, stop the panicking, stop the constant need for them to have the ball, and defensively stop the panicking. Let's just see it out, calm it down, and try and get a foothold in this. And we do. We go 2-1 up. Again, Mikalenko finds himself on the edge of the box. Corner comes in. Garner has come on at this point for Onana, who obviously come off for half-time due to fitness issues. And Garner, I don't know whether it's just a really, really bad cross into the box or whether he meant it, but regardless, he puts the ball in. It ends up falling to Miko. Miko strikes it brilliantly with his left foot. Again, that lad, you can criticise that lad as much as you want about his inability going forward. Don't forget that was Eze's first start back. Yeah, that's what I mean, exactly. Emma says it's blatant now since Mike Dean let the cat out of the bag. Mike Dean let the cat out of the bag and landed the top job at Sky. Not even trying to hide it now. Exactly. As I said, Miko strikes it brilliantly, and like I said, I've been one to criticise Mikalenko's attacking play in the past, but I don't think anybody can question whether or not he can hit a ball, because he can definitely hit a ball. It bounces off the post and obviously falls to that man who it often falls to put the ball in the back of the net, Abdoulaye Doucouré. And I remember we done a video a couple of weeks ago when he signed his contract extension, and we had some people saying, "Oh, what's he done to deserve a contract extension? He shouldn't be given one. This is why the club are where they are." In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, this might be controversial and people might disagree with this, but in my opinion, this Everton team at the moment, in its current state, in its current situation, Abdoulaye Doucouré is the most important player in it, in my opinion. Because he is more often than not the player that steps up when we need him to score important goals. He's fantastic away from home. And this goal was another example of it. We were unlucky. It was unlucky by Mikalenko for that shot to hit the post. It deserved to rattle the back of the net, but it didn't. It hit the post. And who was there? Dukes was there. Now, this might be seen as a comfortable, easy tap-in for Doucouré. But as I said on Saturday, them lot over the park paid £80 million for a centre-forward who misses 3 of them every week. Every week. It's coming at him fast. He's got a second to think about it. He's got he's not worrying about whether or not the ball comes to him. He's worrying about staying onside. So he's got to keep himself onside. Then he's got a second to think about what he needs to do, take the shot, and accurately place it in the back of the net. He does that. He's kept himself onside. It's a brilliant goal, and we're back to being 2-1 up. And you're thinking, okay, now can we treat this game a little bit like some of the previous away games, where we can sort of sit back now, frustrate them, stop them from playing, and just see this out. As I said, they obviously go and bring on Elise for his first game in 286 years or something like that. He comes on full of beans, full of pace, full of energy, wants to get forward. Their crowd is lifted, and all of a sudden it's back to how it was for me in the last sort of 20 minutes of the first half. Neither team really being in control of the game, neither team really having a foothold in it. Palace getting forward again, not really doing much to test us, but still getting forward. There were 3 or 4 moments, I felt, in that period of time between Everton scoring the second goal and Palace scoring the equaliser. There were 3 or 4 moments where Jordan Pickford was called into action, and he was fantastic. He rushed out at one point to come and collect the ball. There was another point where there was a mix-up defensively between Mikalenko and, was it Ashley Young? It mightn't have been Ashley Young, it might have been someone else. And Pickford had to make a dive and save and did brilliantly. There were a couple of other moments where he was called to come out and collect, and he did it fantastically. He was massive in that period of time between Doucouré's goal and Edouard's goal, because he was there when we needed him to be there, in the positions that we needed him to be. We then obviously concede the second goal, and as I said, for me, it's one of the worst goals we've ever conceded. It's a classic case of miscommunication. I don't know who's at fault. Some people will say Tarkowski's at fault. The reality is the ball's over Tarkowski's head. Some people will then say Jordan's at fault. Again, Jordan's probably assuming that one of his defenders is going to get rid of that ball that is looping in the air. They don't. It falls to Edouard, who was absolutely terrible all afternoon, but even he won't miss this one. It's 2 yards away from goal. He puts it into the back of the net, and as I said, it was that moment where I thought, and I said, I think I tweeted it out, let's just see this out now, get a point, come away with a point, see it out, and we'll be able to say, do you know what, that was a bit of an up and down afternoon, that at least we've managed to get a point, let's move forward. as I said, they'd had Elise on at this point. They were confident. They were getting forward. The crowd were up. The crowd believed that they'd go and get the winner because, obviously, as I said, they were seemingly the team on top. And I just remember thinking, just come away from here. Just come away from here with a point and we'll be able to move on. But we didn't. We come away with more than a point because these players didn't let their heads drop. They didn't lose confidence. They didn't lose faith. They didn't lose belief. And that is the sign of a team that are flourishing. You know, this situation last season, we would have saw the signs of a dead flower that had been stampled on, that had had no water, and that were just there to basically exist until they were, you know, dug up and put in the bin. And we'd have gone on and lost that game. Now, we flourished in that moment. And instead of capitulating and throwing ourselves over and, you know, panicking and, you know, stressing ourselves out and bringing Michael Keane on to try and see the game out, we didn't. We picked ourselves up. We soaked up the pressure. The last 10 minutes defensively, I thought we were excellent. Absolutely excellent, considering how shaky we'd been throughout the rest of the game. I thought we were excellent in the last 10 minutes defensively. And we go and get the winner. Now, I've just said 5 minutes ago, in my opinion, Abdoulaye Doucouré is the most important player in this current Everton team, in this current Everton system. And once again, he shows that with the winning goal. It's a lovely ball to Gana Gueye. Lovely ball to Gana Gueye. It's weighted brilliantly. It's timed brilliantly. It's a fantastic ball through. And an unlikely hero, Gana, steps up, takes a touch, gets himself into a good area and cuts it back across the goalkeeper and gets the winning goal. And never did I think Idrissa Gana Gueye, when Odsonne Edouard scored that goal, and they'd brought Elise on, and they were getting at us, and they were attacking, and we were looking tired, I did never think that Gana Gueye would pop up with the winning goal for Everton. But thank fuck he did, because, as I said, that was a huge, huge 3 points. It's a great finish. Fair play to Gana. You know, not very often do his shots end up on target, never mind in the back of the net, but fair play to him. It was a fantastically well-taken shot. It was a brilliant ball by Doucouré, as I said. And all of a sudden, we're back ahead, and that completely just, that burst the bubble of Palace, didn't it? They had, you know, the crowd were up for it before that. They believed that they'd go on and get the winner. And as I said before, I think if you would have asked the majority of Palace fans in that moment when they equalised, who did they think was going to go on and win the game, I think they'd have said themselves. Their bubble was burst completely, and Everton were able to hold on and win the game. And as I say, come away with what for me is our most important win of the season, because it shows grit. It shows determination, it shows desire, it shows passion, it shows never giving up, it shows a willingness to always dig deep until the last second to try and win a game of football, and it shows that being able to do that away from home at a tough ground with a tough crowd. So, you know, that proves a lot more to me about this team and about the mentality of this team and about how different this team is to what it was 12 months ago than the win against Bournemouth. Because yes, the win against Bournemouth was brilliant and we were comfortable and we were great, but we comfortably beat Palace last season in the same way. But never once did we go away last season in this circumstance and dig deep enough to go and get a win. We just didn't. So, made up with it. Fantastic win. Obviously, we're in the international break now. Manchester United at home next, and hopefully we can continue that. And there's no reason why we can't go and beat Manchester United either, because they're there for the taking at the moment. Leivovic says, can you see Dukes as captain? I can definitely see him wearing the armband in the future. Can I see him as a permanent captain? I don't know, because I don't know how. I know he's just signed a new contract, but I'm not sure, but he's definitely got he leads by example on the pitch. 100% he leads by example. Yeah, so there you go, a fantastic win, a huge win, one that we needed, and one that obviously, as I said, I think we probably did deserve in the end. If you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. We'll be back over the next couple of days or so. I know it's the international break, but we'll be back with more content and more things to talk about. So don't forget to, if you haven't already subscribed, that would mean a huge amount to me. And if you have subscribed, then put the notification bell on and you'll be notified when we upload next. So there you go. Huge, huge win. Hopefully we can continue this form. And as I said, you know, that for me was the way I love seeing Everton win games of football. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing us win however we win, but that was different to me, and that was special. And yeah, I'm still absolutely buzzing about it. So there you go. Please leave a like if you have enjoyed this one. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new as well. That would mean a huge amount to me, and we'll see you after.